The face you see in the mirror every morning is a crime scene, and you are the lead investigator refusing to look at the evidence. You have spent decades meticulously constructing a monument to a person who doesn't actually exist, stitching together the expectations of a dead lineage, the whispers of social convenience, and the desperate need to be normal. Every yes you uttered when your soul screamed no was a brick in the wall of your own prison, and now you sit inside it, wondering why the air feels so thin. You aren't living your life. You are piloting a puppet designed by committee, terrified that if you let the strings go slack, there will be nothing left underneath but a hollow, echoing silence. Why does it feel like you are waiting for your real life to begin, even as the clock relentlessly carves away your remaining years? You feel that gnawing tightness in your chest at 3 a.m., not because you're stressed about work, but because you realize you've become a stranger to yourself. You are wearing a mask that has begun to fuse with your skin, and the pain of peeling it off is the only thing that proves you're still alive. Are you actually the person who holds those political views, those career ambitions, and those moral standards? Or are you just a sophisticated playback device for the voices of people you were once afraid to disappoint? The truth is far more violent than you care to admit. You have traded your soul for a sense of belonging that doesn't even satisfy you. You are terrified of the life fear, the overwhelming dread of standing alone as a unique individual. And so you have retreated into the death fear, a slow, stagnant expiration within the safety of the crowd. You've borrowed your beliefs because you were too cowardly to forge your own, and now the interest on that debt is coming due. Do you have the courage to look at the wreckage of your borrowed self, or will you continue to perform this play until the curtain falls on a stage where you were never the protagonist? 1. The comfortable suicide of adaptation. You think you are being a good person by meeting expectations, but in the eyes of your own psyche, you are committing a slow-motion suicide. Otto called this the tragedy of the average man, the individual who solves the problem of existence by ceasing to exist as an individual. You have adapted so well to your environment that you have become indistinguishable from the wallpaper of your own life. Think about your current career path or your long-term relationship. How much of it was a conscious choice born of your deepest will, and how much of it was simply the path of least resistance to avoid conflict with your parents, your peers, or the algorithm of a successful life? This adaptation is a sedative. It numbs the terror of being responsible for your own meaning. If you follow the script provided by your culture, you can never be wrong, but you can also never be real. You wake up, you perform the rituals of your social class, you use the vocabulary of your professional circle, and you go to sleep. But in the quiet moments, the will that you've suppressed begins to leak out as irritability, chronic fatigue, or a nameless resentment toward the people you claim to love. You aren't tired from working. You are tired from the exhausting labor of pretending to be the person who does that work. How often do you find yourself defending a position you don't actually care about, simply because it's what someone like you is supposed to say? This is the hallmark of the borrowed identity. You have outsourced your thinking to the collective because the alternative, thinking for yourself, requires a loneliness you aren't prepared to endure. You are terrified that if you stop adapting, you will be cast out into the cold. But look around you. Isn't the warmth of the crowd already freezing your spirit solid? 2. The will as a threat. From the moment you were born, your will, that raw, surging force of your unique individuality, was treated as a problem to be solved. To your parents, your will was disobedience. To your teachers, it was disruption. To your employers, it was insubordination. You were taught that to have a will of your own is to be difficult or selfish. So you learned to view your own creative impulses as threats to your safety. You began to see your inner voice not as a guide, but as a saboteur that might ruin your stable, borrowed life. Consider the last time you had a truly heretical thought, something that went against everything your social circle believes. Did you explore it? Or did you immediately crush it under the weight of guilt? This internal censorship is the mechanism of your own enslavement. You have become your own jailer, monitoring your thoughts to ensure they remain safe and acceptable. You are afraid of your own power because power requires responsibility. And responsibility is a heavy burden for someone who has spent their life leaning on the crutches of borrowed beliefs. What happens to a person who never exercises their will? They don't just stay the same, they begin to rot from the inside. This suppressed energy doesn't disappear. It turns into counter-will. It becomes the no that you say to everything, even things you want, because you are so desperate to feel some sense of agency. You sabotage your success, you ruin your health, or you pick fights with your partner, all because your soul is screaming for some form of impact on the world, even if that impact is destructive. Is your niceness actually a virtue, or is it just the paralysis of a broken will? 3. The birth trauma of individuality. Every step toward becoming yourself feels like a betrayal. G. Rank suggested that all of life is a series of births, painful separations from a state of union into a state of greater independence. The first was your physical birth, but you have many more to go, and most people stop after the first one. You are still psychologically in the womb of your family, your religion, or your political party. To leave that womb is to experience the birth trauma all over again. It is cold, it is terrifying, and it is lonely. Think about the guilt you feel when you disagree with someone you respect. That isn't moral guilt. It's the primal fear of separation. You feel that by being yourself, you are hurting others. But you must ask, why is their comfort dependent on your self-obliteration? If your mother's happiness or your friend's approval requires you to lie about who you are, then you aren't in a relationship. You are in a hostage situation. You are staying in the womb because you are afraid of the first breath of independent air. This fear of separation is why you cling to borrowed beliefs. They are the umbilical cord that keeps you connected to the collective. If you believe what they believe, you are safe. If you value what they value, you are loved. But this safety is a lie. You can be surrounded by 1,000 people who agree with you and still feel a profound, aching loneliness because you aren't there. Only your persona is. The real you is still shivering in the dark, waiting for the courage to be born. How much longer can you survive in a space that has become too small for your soul? 4. So the architecture of the persona. You have spent years building a persona, a functional interface for the world. But you've made the mistake of thinking the interface is the user. Your LinkedIn profile, your cool aesthetic, your reputation as the reliable one, or the intellectual. These are just costumes. The problem arises when you can no longer take the costume off. You start to believe that your value is tied to these borrowed attributes. If you lost your job, your status, or your specific social role tomorrow, would there be an I left to experience the loss, or would the whole structure collapse? Observe your social interactions. Notice how you automatically calibrate your tone, your vocabulary, and even your posture to match the expectations of the person in front of you. This isn't just politeness. It's a desperate negotiation for existence. You are terrified that if you showed your raw, unedited self, you would be found wanting. So you present a curated version of a person you think they will like. You are a ghost haunting your own life, watching your persona interact with other personas in a play where no one is telling the truth. Whose life are you actually living? If you look at your daily habits, your spending, and your goals, how many of them were planted there by a marketing department or a societal norm you never questioned? You are a vessel for the desires of others. You want the house, the car, the body, and the peace of mind that you've been told to want. But when you get them, the void remains. This is because a borrowed desire can never lead to a genuine satisfaction. You are eating a feast in your persona's name, while your actual self is starving to death. 5. Anxiety as the whisper of the truth. We are taught to treat anxiety as a disorder, something to be medicated, distracted, or solved. But from a Rankian perspective, your anxiety is often the most honest part of you. It is the will trying to break through the crust of your borrowed identity. It is the friction between who you are and who you are pretending to be. When you feel that sudden wave of panic in the middle of a meeting, or that Sunday scaries, dread that feels like a looming execution, that is your psyche signaling that you are in a state of self-betrayal. You try to fix the anxiety by working harder at being the person you aren't. You buy more self-help books. You optimize your morning routine. You try to think positive, but you cannot think your way out of a life that is fundamentally dishonest. The anxiety isn't the problem. The reason for the anxiety is the problem. It is the internal alarm system telling you that your borrowed beliefs are no longer sufficient to protect you from the reality of your own existence. What if you stopped running from the discomfort? What if, instead of asking, "How can I stop feeling anxious?" you asked, "What is this anxiety trying to kill in me?" Usually, it's trying to kill the lie. It's trying to burn down the fake structures you've built so that something real can grow in the ashes. You are so afraid of the fire that you keep living in a condemned building. Are you willing to let the false version of yourself die so that the real one can finally breathe? 6. The fear of life versus the fear of death. This is the ultimate Rankian paradox that governs your every move. You are caught between two terrors. The life fear is the fear of being a separate, unique individual. The fear of the I standing alone without the support of the collective. This fear pushes you to conform, to borrow beliefs, and to hide in the crowd. But when you move too far into the crowd, you encounter the death fear, the fear of losing yourself entirely, of being swallowed by the mass, of living a life that leaves no trace of your actual essence. You spend your days oscillating between these two poles. You want to be special, but not too special. You want to belong, but you don't want to be a nobody. This tension is what makes you feel like you're constantly waiting for something to happen. You are paralyzed. To choose life is to accept the risk of total isolation and the burden of self-creation. To choose death is to accept the safety of a meaningless, borrowed existence. Which one have you chosen by default? Most of your borrowed beliefs are just shields against the life fear. They are immortality projects, ways to feel like you belong to something bigger so you don't have to face your own smallness and eventual end. You join a movement, a brand, or a tradition because it promises you a place in a story that started before you and will continue after you. But if the story isn't yours, what is it worth? You are seeking a permanent solution to a temporary existence, and in doing so, you are missing the only thing you actually have: the present experience of your own unique will. 7. The shadow of approval. You are an approval junkie, and the world is your dealer. Every time you check for a like, a nod of agreement, or a performance review, you are looking for confirmation that your borrowed identity is still valid. You have outsourced your self-worth to the very people you secretly don't even respect. Why do you care what a stranger thinks of your life? Why does a single criticism from a person you wouldn't ask for advice ruin your entire week? It's because without their approval, the borrowed self ceases to exist. A borrowed identity requires constant maintenance from the outside. If people stop believing in the character you're playing, the character disappears, and you're left with the void. This is why you are so agreeable. This is why you find it impossible to say no without a 10-minute explanation. You aren't being kind. You are being manipulative. You are manipulating people into liking you so that you don't have to face the terrifying task of liking yourself. Imagine for a moment that everyone you know suddenly disappeared. No one to impress, no one to judge you, no one to provide a script. What would you do with your time? What would you believe? If the answer is, "I don't know," then you realize the extent of the damage. You have become a mirror that only knows how to reflect. But a mirror has no color of its own. It is cold, flat, and empty. Is there anything behind your eyes that doesn't depend on someone else's gaze to exist? 8. The courage to be evil in their eyes. To reclaim your identity, you must be willing to be the villain in someone else's story. In Rankian terms, the creative type is the one who dares to use their will to create their own reality, even if it disrupts the harmony of the group. This requires a form of guilt that most people cannot stomach. You have to be okay with disappointing your parents. You have to be okay with your friends saying you've changed. You have to be okay with the collective calling you selfish or wrong. True morality isn't following the rules. It's being responsible for the rules you create for yourself. The borrowed beliefs you carry are a way to avoid this responsibility. If you just follow the 10 commandments of your social circle, you don't have to think. You don't have to weigh the consequences. You just obey. But obedience is the opposite of growth. Growth is an act of defiance. It is the seed breaking the earth. It is violent. It is messy, and it is absolutely necessary. When was the last time you did something solely because you wanted to, despite knowing it would be misunderstood? If you can't remember, then you aren't an adult. You are just an aging child. You are still looking for a permission slip to live your life. But here is the uncomfortable truth. No one is coming to give you permission. The people you are waiting for are just as lost and borrowed as you are. They are clinging to their scripts just as tightly. The only way out is to stop caring about the plot and start focusing on the actor. 9. The vacuum of the unlived life. There is a specific kind of haunting that happens to people who live through borrowed beliefs. It's the unlived life. The person you could have been if you hadn't been so afraid. This ghost doesn't stay in the past. It follows you into every room. It sits at the dinner table while you talk about things you don't care about. It stands over your bed while you lie awake wondering where the years went. It is the source of your midlife crises, your burnout, and your sudden, inexplicable bursts of anger. The unlived life is a debt that must be paid. You can try to drown it in alcohol, distract it with endless scrolling, or bury it under career achievements, but it will not go away. It is your own soul demanding to be seen. The longer you wait to reclaim your identity, the more bitter this ghost becomes. Eventually, it doesn't want to help you. It just wants to punish you for your cowardice. You see this in elderly people who are full of venom and regret. They aren't angry at the world. They are angry at the person they never dared to be. Look at your hands. Look at your life. Is this what you actually wanted? Or is this just what you settled for because you were told it was enough? The enough of the collective is a slow poison for the individual. You were meant to be a creator, not a consumer of other people's certainties. The vacuum of your unlived life is pulling at you every day. You feel it as a vague sense of missing something. You aren't missing a thing. You are missing yourself. X. The necessity of the void. We spend our entire lives trying to fill the vulnerability at our core. We fill it with beliefs, with titles, with possessions, and with identities. But Rank's most profound insight was that the void is not something to be filled. It is the space where creation happens. By borrowing beliefs, you are trying to plug a hole that is actually your greatest source of power. You are trying to be solid and finished when you should be fluid and becoming. When you finally drop the borrowed beliefs, you will feel a terrifying emptiness. Good. That emptiness is the first honest thing you've felt in years. It is the creative void. In that space, you are no longer a doctor, a Democrat, a father, or a success. You are just a localized point of consciousness with a will. From that nothingness, you can begin to build a self that is actually yours. It won't be perfect, it won't be safe, and it certainly won't be approved by everyone, but it will be real. The question isn't whether you can find yourself. You aren't lost. You're just hidden under a mountain of other people's garbage. The question is whether you are willing to do the grueling, lonely work of excavation. Are you willing to lose the world to gain your own soul? Or is the borrowed version of you the one that everyone likes, the one that fits in, the one that is currently watching this, too comfortable to let go? You will walk away from this and likely fall right back into the rhythm of your borrowed life. You will check your phone, you will respond to your obligations, and you will use the same phrases you used yesterday. But a crack has been made. That discomfort you feel right now, that slight nausea, that urge to dismiss these words as too dark, is the sound of your real self hammering on the inside of the coffin. There is no magic ritual to become you. There is only the daily, agonizing choice to stop lying. You can continue to be a well-crafted shadow, or you can accept the isolation of being a light. One path offers the safety of the grave. The other offers the terrifying exhaustion of the climb. You've been living a borrowed life because you thought it was cheaper. But as you're starting to realize, it's costing you everything. And the worst part? You've known this all along. You've just been waiting for someone to give you permission to admit it. Consider the permission denied. You have to take it. Or you can just keep pretending until there's nothing left to pretend with. The choice, unfortunately for you, has always been yours.